MOONCAST. Today actually you see like the intro and the standby picture is way cooler now because I just, instead of using OBS, now I'm using vMix. And Isa is right here. It's kind of weird.
I'm making sure it's all working because I had to set it all up last night.
Yeah. So finally, Boomer Luna agreed to move to vMix after how many years? 2 years? Yeah, because I kept insisting on using OBS because it's so simple and easy to use. But the biggest problem is the synchronization between the audio and the video.
So hopefully it's synchronized. And I made it so Luna only has to push 3 buttons.
Yes.
Luna has, here, show them your boomer board.
This is my boomer board.
I made Luna a boomer board. She's got 3 buttons.
I only have to push 3 buttons. Man, vMix is so
Apple Chip says it's synchronized.
Nice.
Just the thing is, Luna, only push those 3 buttons. Don't push anything else in vMix ever.
I won't. It's just like, yeah, I feel like what you're thinking about me is like what I'm thinking about my parents.
Yeah.
When I gave my parents like the first smartphone, I tell them like, oh, this is the home button and this is how to take the screenshot.
Wait, I want to do my impression of Luna's mom using a smartphone. Give me your glasses.
All right, here.
This is how Luna's mom uses a smartphone. Okay. So she's got the smartphone. She's like,
yes, exactly that.
She always like twists her finger. She's like, that's really funny.
Now it's me using vMix.
Yeah. No, don't push it.
Oh, okay. I won't.
That's fun stuff. Smokey says, I will miss the old days of unsynced lips. Yes. F in the chat for the unsynced Luna. It might be the last time you'll ever experience it.
That is the glorious days that you will never have again.
Did anyone bring snacks? I hope you brought enough for everyone to share. My hair is... I was going to go do my hair and makeup and stuff. I wasn't planning on being on stream yet. In fact, I'm going to go do that now. So have fun. I'll be back later to dunk on the CIA with Luna.
Wait a minute. I'm going to watch a fun video now. If I click to watch it, the audio is going to be through the speaker or
StreamYard... What? Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, I have to wear a headphone.
No. Well, you should wear headphones because... Remember, Luna, I made you a boomer headphone station.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It's everything.
It's also a boomer headphone station.
And if you need more cable, you can just pull this cable out.
I just don't have to do anything. Just take it out, put it on my ears, and there's the volume button, and that's it.
Let me make sure that.
Oh my gosh!
It's on this headphones. All right, hold on. Will you hear the ding dong? Let me see. Nope, it's set up to the speaker.
Yes.
I need to set it to. Oh no, this is a nightmare.
So this is the thing that I don't understand.
Luna, I need you to do something that's very difficult. You have to unplug that pair of headphones and plug in the other pair.
No way! What?
I can't do it because I'm not wearing pants.
Oh gosh, wear pants.
We need like the Mission Impossible music.
Yeah, right.
Boom, 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 boom. Okay. The headphone cable. No. Look at this. Yeah, no, keep that in your hand. You need that. Okay. That's gonna replace what you're unplugging. Okay. Do you see where it says Behringer on the soundboard? On the top right? Yep. Right next to that is a cable plugged in.
Phones?
Yep. It says phones. Unplug that.
Unplug this.
Yep. Careful. Don't.
Okay, I unplug
it. All right, now plug this in.
Okay.
Okay. That's it.
Okay.
I even labeled it so it's... All right. Now.
Glad Luna is wearing pants. Yes, I'm wearing my beautiful skirt right here.
I'm going to put pants on. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Wait, what am I doing?
Yeah. What's wrong?
Oh, these are turned down like a lot. Just turn down. Okay. Turn up the headphones underneath the 2 red lights. See the 2 red lights?
Oh, this?
This is a nightmare. Yeah.
Up.
Turn it up.
Up.
Okay, that should be enough.
So this is how if you have to
turn it up more. These are very weak.
Boomer Luna.
All right, that should be enough. Try it.
Thanks. I trust you.
I don't know. We have totally different ears, so.
All right. Okay, EJ, now you if you want, you can go like make up, be handsome. Today you wear some pants on, okay?
Full on like.
And I'm gonna watch a fun video on.
It's not fun. It's actually very obnoxious.
Obnoxious, fun in the yeah.
Can you hear it in your headphones?
Of course, yes.
Okay. All right. Have fun.
Let's have fun, everybody. Now let's share screen. Share window or Chrome tab. I'm gonna share Chrome tab. This one. Share tab audio. Yes, share. Now let's have fun with this. I just stumbled on this video a few days ago. She's a Chinese American, I think, and this is her TikTok, and this is how she talks about China and celebrities in China. Let's do it.
I don't know why I suddenly thought of this, but I really wish that being Chinese, as I am, had the same, like, cultural implications as, like, being Korean or Japanese does. Because, like, yeah, we're all East Asian, but if you're Korean or you're Japanese, or even if you're Filipino, I feel like, I don't know, this might be, like, super wrong, but what the impression I get is that you get sort of like cultural clout or something like that, because there's a lot of Korean pop culture things that Westerners enjoy, you know? Like K-pop, K-dramas, Parasite, Squid Game, all that. And it's all like associated with Korea and being Korean, as it should. And similarly, Japan, you know, Japan does anime, they have like Nintendo, you know, like there's a certain culture associated with Japan as well. When you think of China, there is no sort of like pop culture phenomenon that is associated with China. The only thing that people ever think about when they think of China is the government. And, you know, that's for a reason, because obviously China's government is like not the best. There are a lot of things that people get wrong about it, but for by no means is it good. Like, all good,
what?
You know? Anyway, so
why is the internet so bad? But what? Seriously? So virtually no influence Chinese from Chinese celebrities or what? This is very strange, Sex. I have to tell you that.
Yeah, when people hear China or Chinese, there's no cultural thing that's relevant that comes to mind. You know, it's really just like government. And there's nothing that I've found I've been able to like really relate to or find myself enjoying.
Are you kidding me?
Things in China, because we lack that sort of like cultural distinction, I guess.
The fuck?
Like, I think honestly, if I were Korean, I would be like super into K-pop because I'm Korean. You know, like, not to make that generalization, but I typically identify.
I'm Vietnamese, but excuse me,
part of my identity. You know, so I like, I don't know, tea. I like cheapos. You know, those things are all like cool to me. But there is nothing like pop culture related that I can relate to as a Chinese person, because all that China does in the American perception is have a communist government. And for that,
oh my gosh. All right. Folks, I'm shocked. I'm in shock. You know why? Dude, China is a huge country with like 1.4 billion people, and right now, from the top of my head, I can give you like 30 names of huge celebrities in China. Jackie Chan, you know about that, right? Who else? I have to find some English names for you, because I know shitload of them, but like in actual Chinese names, it's like don't get one like I'm sorry, I do not know how do you guys call them in English name, but there are so many famous Chinese actresses, singers in the world. Like Fan Bingbing, exactly. Fan Bingbing. Shh. She's supposed to be Chinese. Why doesn't she know about her own country? Donnie Yen, yeah. Bruce Lee, yeah. Wu Qing. Gosh. Then she dares to compare to like K-pop and like Japanese anime. Like I know that K-pop is very famous, anime is very famous, but in the same kind of video, she talks about there's virtually no influence from Chinese celebrities. Ridiculous. It's so huge. Chinese like movies and shows and songs in Vietnam are so huge. We have so many like C-pop, we call them C-pop. Fans in Vietnam. I personally watch so many Chinese shows. Like, I'm shocked. Like, what? Seriously? Girl, seriously? And Chinese has its own anime too. Exactly, they're very beautiful. I gotta say that. Like, you know what? Lots of Vietnamese people saying like, we wish that we can have like you know, as much money as China to make like lots of like, you know, music and movies, animes like that, and shows like that. Literally, we want to be as strong as China. It's ridiculous that she literally said that. Like, what? I can't tell if that girl was trying to defend China or not. Yeah, I don't know. She's I don't know. She's trying to be appealing to English speaking sphere, you know. And the thing is that like the reason why most of you just according to her argument, her own logic, the reason why the imperial core just know about China, about their government and the politics and how they bad guy, you know, how they China is bad guy, is the font and is the intention of Western media outlets. Mean that they only report about China, about the government, and about like political stuff like that. Meanwhile, when they talk about, you know, Japan and South Korea, the two countries that accidentally the vassal states of the USA, they like be crazy about the K-pop and the movies and the shows, but about China, suddenly they just only talk about, you know, political stuff. And that is not the fault of China. That is freaking powerful out there. You're just like living in an indoctrinated country, so you don't know. But it's like, again, I've been using this metaphor a lot, you know, about the frog living in a well, the whole life spending in that well. So leaving the bottom of the well, you look up, you see your sky is as big as a plate. And you think like you know everything about this well. You're the king of this well. You're Mr. Know-it-all, and even the sky is just as small as a plate. You feel so confident. But you know what? You're just a frog living in a well. Out there is the whole world that you know nothing about. And this is, you're leaving everything that you receive, you know, in your life, the education, the information, the indoctrination, the propaganda, they all went through a funnel, you know, from the government, the filter from the government. And this is related to the topic of the video today, of the live stream today. We're going to talk about CIA. Yes, we're going to talk about CIA once again. Everybody knows that CIA is really, really horrible organization run by the State Department, the USA, and they've been manipulating the whole world for decades. Everybody knows about that. It's obvious. But the thing that I want to focus on today is an actual CIA agent who was sent to Vietnam in the Vietnam War. After he saw what happened to Vietnamese people and how Vietnamese were treated by Americans, it broke his heart. and he decided to escape and become the informant, you know. He decided to betray CIA, something like that. And we're gonna learn more about him, and then we're gonna watch an interview where he admitted the thing that he helped CIA with, the thing that CIA is capable of, and the scale of the power of CIA. Because yes, most of us know that CIA is bad. You know, it manipulates the whole world narrative about communism. But most of you do not know about how powerful it is. Most of you do not know that how it functions and how it's been manipulating your own information. Lots of you, it's just like fish living in the water for so long that you don't even know what water is anymore. So like, for example, there was like a short story of like two fish like floating and talking about, hey, the water seems nice today, huh? And the second fish like, water? What's water? It's a metaphor for people who, as I said, you've been living in indoctrination for so long that you don't even recognize it anymore. Even though you know the CIA is bad, but you don't know that what the information that you're receiving being manipulated by CIA, and you are not capable of pointing that out and fighting against that narrative. And then I will talk a little bit about all the organizations, the NGOs, the international NGOs that has a relation with the CIA. You know, for example, like USAID is one of them. It's obvious that USAID is funded by CIA. And when I pointed that out, lots of people like laughed at me. You know, it's a thing like lots of people, a lot of you, like you're incapable of seeing how powerful and how deep the roots from the CIA been inside your head. That you cannot even like wrap your head around the idea that, oh shit, CIA has connections with these organizations means that I cannot trust them. You can't. You can't. So now let's go to the point. Today I am introducing to you an ex-CIA agent. He had been working for the CIA for about how long? 25 years. He joined the CIA in 1952. And he was the one who was specifically sent to Vietnam in the Vietnam War to run the disinformation campaign and to manipulate, to become the filter to American, their target audience. Let me look for it a little bit. All right. Now I need go back to not workspace. Oh, I need to go here, right? Boards. Give me a second. I'm getting the link ready for you. Yeah, this is the information. All right. Ready. Let's do this. EJ, I need you to go here and teach me how to read this name. I don't want to read it wrong. His name is weird.
Ralph McGee.
Ralph McGee.
I'm guessing. McGahee. Maybe.
No clue. All right. Ralph. I'm going to just call him Ralph. Ralph, CIA officer who became an agency critic, dies at 92 of coronavirus. This is the article written in 2020 on Washington Post. And this has very brief information about his life, and let's learn about Ralph McGahee today. Ralph McGahey, who joined the CIA out of colleges as a gung-ho Cold Warrior, became disillusioned during the Vietnam War and emerged as a prominent critic of the agency after publishing the memoir Deadly Deceit. I haven't checked out his memoirs yet, but if I have time, I will read this. He just died at May 2nd. Wow, my birthday was May 1st, so he died like just one day after my birthday during the due to the coronavirus, COVID-19. Raised during the Depression and World War II, McGahey joined the CIA in 1952 to fight communism and save the world for democracy. You know what? The word democracy and freedom now become like a buzzword for bombs and drone strikes and chemical weapons. So whenever I hear about the word democracy and freedom from especially Westerners, goosebumps over my body. It's cringe. Yeah. A star football player in college, he had played on 3 national championship teams at Notre Dame and excelled during exercise at the farm. The agency clandestine training center at Camp Peary in Virginia. Okay, let's go to the main point here. He went on to work as a case officer and counter-revolutionary operator in the Philippines, Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam, where he served as a tip of the spear of American foreign policy, and by the late 1960s, was increasingly racked with doubts about his mission. No, wait a minute.
Just move yourself that way.
I know. Okay. Hi, EJ. Let's join this.
Luna asked me to be here. Everyone, don't get mad at me.
Yeah. I'm asking you specifically to be here because we're talking about your country here.
I'm just saying everyone gets pissed whenever EJ comes on, and I'm just saying I was drafted. Are we gonna watch the video or?
Yes, I am giving people the basic information about McGahey's life first before watching the video. Okay. In McGahey's telling, the CIA suppressed his assessment about widespread communist support in northeastern Thailand, where he found out that the Communist Party was building a mass-based revolutionary movement rather than terrorizing the population into submission. He saw something similar in Vietnam, where a broad swath of society seemed to be rebelling against years of foreign occupation and oppression. McGahey came to believe that the agency was intentionally distorting intelligence to support the White House political goals, giving up the support for the Vietnam War even as its outlook worsened. Seated in his Saigon apartment in 1969, this is 1 year after the Tet Offensive, 1 year after my grandpa died in the battlefield in the South. He considered hanging a banner from his window that read, "The CIA lies," and then shooting himself. According to a New York Times report that chronicled the disintegration of his small corner of the American dream. Vietnam broke him, as it did so many millions of Vietnamese people, said former Times reporter.
Just people.
Yeah.
Vietnamese and American, and yeah.
Yeah. So many millions of people. He has spent half his life working for the American cause, and when Saigon fell, his work went up in smoke.
Yay! I'm glad his work went up in smoke.
So after that, meaning after the Vietnam War, he went back to the USA and started exposing all the things that CIA did and why he decided to do that, you know. And now we're gonna listen to one of the interviews he did. Not exactly sure what he is, like 80s or 90s or something like that. But it's
Did you read this?
Yeah.
Like.
No, I haven't.
So as news reports and congressional investigations exposed CIA assassination plots and domestic spying programs, Mr. McGahey grew restless and bitter, later recalling years filled with anger, bitterness, self-doubts, mistrust, disbelief, disgust, and struggle. In 1977, after 25 years with the CIA, he volunteered for a new early retirement program. Somewhat to his surprise, he left with the Career Intelligence Medal. He got an award. Awarded by William W. Wells, the Deputy Director for Operations. Mr. McGahey said he accepted it in part to give my children an occasion to be proud of their father. Wouldn't be too proud of that. Adding in his memoir that the medal citation offered further confirmation that the CIA's intelligence was flawed. It recognized his excellent work in Malaysia, a country which I had never even visited.
Wow.
I mean, who knows? Okay, so working out of his home in Herndon, Virginia, he pored over histories of the Vietnam War to write Deadly Deceits, which chronicled his years in the CIA and concluded with a scathing condemnation of the agency as a whole. The CIA is not now, nor has it ever been, a central intelligence agency. It is the covert action arm of the president's foreign policy advisors. In that capacity, it overthrows or supports foreign governments while reporting intelligence justifying those activities. Disinformation is a large part of its covert action responsibility, and the American people are the primary target audience of its lies. I'm actually reading Parenti's book on inventing reality right now. There are a lot of parallels here. It's a massive program of manipulating and dictating what people think about and how they think about things. You know, Parenti makes all these points about how the press doesn't even have to. It's so interesting. I recommend everybody read Black Shirts and Reds and also Inventing Reality by Parenti. He doesn't actually, and Melodic Savant pointed out Manufacturing Consent by Chomsky, which is also an excellent book. But I think Inventing Reality, it actually goes deeper in some parts that Chomsky doesn't. You should read both, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but like Inventing Reality is more class focused and it talks more about how. So okay. One thing that I think they both talk about is the fact that the press doesn't even have to tell you what to think about a subject because they control what subjects you think about to begin with.
Yes.
So it's really fascinating because, you know, like there's an infinite number of things that they could report on an NDA. But there's always
like the girl said, like she never, like there's virtually no influence from Chinese celebrities. This is example for it.
Yeah.
There are hundreds, thousands of famous Chinese celebrities out there, but Western media outlets chose to not talk about them. That is why she doesn't know about it. Yeah. And because she doesn't even know that she doesn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is why she like said it with a straight face that there's no celebrity influence from China.
And then
that's so bullshit.
When you take into consideration that there are news agencies like Reuters and then big newspapers like the New York Times, which if you go and look at all the smaller newspapers, they print stories directly from Reuters, and even like Yahoo. So for instance, I was reading this bullshit article yesterday from Yahoo from our good friend Hein Vu, who is the Reuters reporter for Vietnam.
Yes.
Reuters. So we got to connect all these dots here. Reuters has at least one high-level executive whose job is to basically conform to the State Department. We've talked about this many times.
She works for CIA for 33 years.
She worked for the CIA for 33 years. Okay.
She's a director.
Reuters constantly pumps out disinformation about Vietnam. Reuters has been exposed to be working with the State Department and the CIA covertly as well. Yes. So has like BBC and many, many other agencies. So, and they work with like the UK intelligence and everything. So, and then all these other smaller, quote unquote, independent newspapers, they use these news agencies like Reuters, and they just copy and paste. Yes. So what you have is a pipeline where, as we know from leaks, and Mr. McGay, he's not the only person to talk about this stuff. We know the CIA creates a lot of disinformation. They feed that to organizations like the New York Times and Reuters. By the way, Snowden showed how
foreign policy.
The New York Times was just printing and not printing things at the will of George W. Bush. This was in the 2000s. George W. Bush. So Snowden talks about this and has records for it because like the New York Times knew about a lot of the stuff that Snowden leaked in advance, and there was this one reporter who was going to break the story, but George W. Bush called the editor of the New York Times and said, "Don't print this." And it wasn't until a couple years later when that reporter was going to write a book, and I think it was after Snowden leaked it, that they rushed and printed all this stuff like at the last second. So they withhold information and they print misinformation that they get from the CIA directly. That gets filtered out and disseminated, and that becomes the talking point.
Yes.
So at no point along the way do you really have any agency about what you're actually believing. Because, and the other thing is that, well, this is getting beyond the scope of this conversation, but the point is the CIA basically feeds this information directly into
your head. Literally your head.
With very, very, very light filtering. Almost none. Walter Cronkite, who was like this is something that Parenti talks about in his book. Walter Cronkite. If you don't know who Walter Cronkite is, he was the most trusted figure in the USA for like 30 years, from like at least from the 60s until the 80s. He was a news anchor on, I think, CBS, and he was like, just everyone trusted him. He was like the news that you got from Walter Cronkite was like, I think at the end of every show he would go like, that's the way it is, and like you believed it. But even when he retired in like 1980, he said that he had been holding his tongue for 20 years and that the CBS executives had been censoring him for 20 years. Walter freaking Cronkite of all people. So yeah, the rabbit hole goes very, very deep in terms of what you are being fed and what you were not knowing. Yeah. So do you want to watch the video now?
Yeah, let's do it. Video is here.
Here. You just drag the tab. Okay. So let's share this video. Can you get me my headphones?
Where's your headphone?
They're in my little headphone note. I know I need to rewire this. Can you reach down there? They're literally on the computer case. No, don't do that. No, they're coiled. No, just grab the coil. You're gonna make it. Oh no, Luna. Boomer Luna. So I got Luna these. Just hold on. As an aside, while we're letting people process everything, Luna has these nice. They're not expensive, but they're nice. They're these what are they called? KZs. KZ in-ear monitors. I got for Luna, and she just, when she's done with them, she just throws them on the ground. And I'm like, Luna, you can't throw these on the ground. She's like, why not? They're just headphones. I'm like, they're in-ear monitors. They're very nice. They have magnets in them. You can't just throw them.
All right, let's hear the testimony of Raph.
Respect your.
I think you shared audio. You sure?
What?
You shared audio?
Yeah, the audio gets shared by default now. They finally gave us that option. So.
I know. All right. This is his interview. It's
Drop the link in the chat. People are gonna want that.
Exactly. You should watch this. Only like less than 10,000 people watch it, so it's incredibly underrated.
Here we go.
Oh,
yes. Wait. Overthrow Media is in the chat. Everyone subscribe to BP, Big Villainous, Overthrow Media. Last video that BP put out is on weed, and there's shit in there I didn't know, and I thought I knew everything. There's stuff about the Hearsts, William Randolph Hearst, and the Hearst media empire that relates to what we're talking about right now that I didn't know about. And I definitely recommend you check that video out, Overthrow Media. And also tomorrow night on my channel, Non-Compete Live, we'll be having a stream talking about weed and decriminalization and some spicy stuff about the intersections between racism and weed. And Big Villainous will be explaining the differences between legalization and decriminalization and why legalization is not necessarily as all it's cracked up to be. Okay, that was just a little plug for our good comrade BP. All right, back to you, Luna.
Okay, let's start. Let's hear the CIA officer reveals how the agency deceived the country during the Vietnam War.
Ralph, how long were you with the CIA?
I was with them 25 years. I joined in 1952. I retired in 1977.
What was your function? What was your job?
I had a variety of jobs. I was a case officer on intelligence collection. I was a covert operator. I was involved in paramilitary operations. In the last 4 years with the agency, I was an analyst with the International Communism Branch.
Paramilitary operations where?
In Thailand and to a degree in Vietnam.
How do you...
So, did you know that the CIA was doing paramilitary operations in Thailand? We never officially had any war or anything with Thailand.
The CIA. Let me rephrase that question. A good many of us do not have a clear picture of what the CIA does. I think many of us believe it is an intelligence gathering agency, that it gets information, that information becomes intelligence, and then it passes it on to key areas in the government. Is that an accurate impression?
No, it isn't.
Wait a minute, before we listen to the answer, welcome the Raiders. I just got raided on Twitch. Welcome. If you're new here, you don't know what we are watching. We are watching a CIA agent who used to work for CIA for 25 years. He's now revealing what he did for CIA and how did the CIA manipulating the anti-communism narrative of the whole world, especially in Thailand and Vietnam. Welcome, everybody.
Brian at New Atlas talks about how the CIA has a lot of control over Thailand. Oh, that's for sure. Yeah. I'll have to check that channel out. Okay.
It's my view, and it's supportable by all the evidence we can see in the Church Committee report and the Pike Committee report and other collateral information.
Church Committee
the CIA is not an intelligence agency. It's a covert action agency. Covert action being
covert.
Overthrowing or supporting
Subtitles
foreign
are not
governments.
Yeah.
Another part of covert action is disinformation. And the American people, in my estimation, are the primary target audience of the agency's disinformation operation.
See, folks, Americans in the chat, how many are you? American in the chat, please thumbs up to see, like, congratulations, you are the target audience of the CIA.
I mean, this is what you talk about when you talk about color revolutions, right?
Yeah.
Color revolutions, when there's a color revolution in Cuba or when they do color revolutionary activity in Vietnam or what have you, the goal for the color revolution is not to reach the people in the country where the color revolution is taking place.
Yes.
So like in Cuba, when they have a fake ass color revolution, the goal, and we know this from the SOS Cuba shit.
Yes.
The goal is to create something, a media spectacle and a narrative for people in the West and especially in the USA to buy. So like in Cuba, we saw the press was just scooping up whatever the CIA was telling them. And that's why we had situations where major news outlets that call themselves accurate, amazing, journalistic integrity, institutions, they are showing pictures of pro-communist rallies and telling people that they're anti-communist, for instance. And like, it's like, it blows my mind that they get away with it and millions of people scoop it up and don't even know that they're being lied to.
As I made a video about color revolution, the target audience is you. That is why I said that most of the banners will be written in English.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to appeal to you and lie to you. Because people like us in Vietnam, we know clearly that that's fucking color revolution. Nobody gives a shit.
We documented it. Go back and look at our streams around the time for the SOS Cuba. They would have major news outlets showing pictures of crowds with thousands of people that were pro-communist, and they would label it, oh, look at this anti-communist demonstration for freedom, blah, 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 blah. And they don't just come up with those ideas on their own. That's being fed to them by the State Department and the CIA. And remember, the CIA works with like USAID. That's why Luna is so anti-USAID, and that's why you should be too. And that's why when big, giant, quote-unquote leftist streamers out there, not going to name any names, but when they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for USAID affiliated organizations,
and
that tells you something.
Hope too.
That tells you something. If I rightfully so, if Luna or I did a stream where we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for a USAID organization, I would expect all of you to be pissed and to hold us accountable for that. I'm just saying. Because the USAID, go look them up. Luna has a great thread on the history of the USAID. They've sent out death squads in the past.
Yes.
They are ugly people. And they have a new director now who has a really strong history of being a soft power, interventionist, imperialist advocate. We've covered all this stuff, so I won't go too deep into it. But for serious, USAID, CIA, State Department, Reuters, all these institutions, it's like it's all one continuous machine, okay? And it's not an exaggeration to say that. Like, it's not even secret. That's the thing. This is not tinfoil hat conspiracy theory shit. This is all open stuff. The USAID, they've been caught red-handed doing shit, and they've also openly admitted shit.
Yes.
None of this is even remotely secret. So
let's continue.
And I view Vietnam, the entire Vietnam War was brought to us, sold to us by agency disinformation operations. When I say us, I mean the American people.
Well, that had to be done, of course, through the press.
Yes.
How else would one reach the American public? Well, how does the CIA How does the CIA develop its relationship with the press?
Well, it happens
This is
on many
important.
levels in many different ways. It could be a director of agency contact with a publisher, or it could be a lower-level agency employee with a lower-level person, or managing editor, per se. Or it could be hiring agency people, and placing them in the news organization. Or it could be giving
Could be
information to a
anyone.
Are you?
reporter
I mean, like, are you
and winning his
really?
goodwill.
Pause it for a second.
It could be just
I want to make sure folks
friendships.
really process this. How important this information is. The strong ties between the CIA and these news agencies, up to and including placing CIA agents in news institutions as reporters. This person talking right now is not some gonzo journalist. It's not some wacky person like me and Luna, you know, that just have some YouTube. This is a former CIA agent who worked for decades, who worked in the intervention in Vietnam, who did paramilitary operations in Thailand. You think he's just going to turn around and start making shit up after a career like that? And it lines up. It's not even. It lines up with everything else we see. It's not like there's a lot of conflicting information.
Yes.
There's no conflicting information. Everything corroborates what he's saying.
And Vietnam War in his time was like the biggest example of how the disinformation was sold to American people. It was so successful that American people sent thousands of troops and dropped millions of tons of bombs and chemical weapons on a country on the other side of the earth. Never did anything to the USA and killed 3 million of our people. My grandpa was one of the people who died in that war, literally because of the CIA upheld their disinformation for the bullshit like domino theory and the communism spreading in Asia.
Where do you think those ideas come from, by the way? The president
where
they have intelligence agencies to create these fucking lies and narratives and all this kind of stuff. I'm adding, by the way, the video link that we're watching to the description. So if you're watching this later, you can check it out.
It's just, you know, like, I hope that you understand a little bit about my feeling right now. You know, I know for all my life the CIA is bad and the USA is horrible. But like
and that they do these things.
When one of them, the one agent that directly involved in the Vietnam War and living in Saigon during the Vietnam War worked for them. When I hear the draft admitted to this, connect to my family member. I literally have family members that died in this war because of the lies or disinformation from this man. My grandpa died because of this man and who he worked for. It's like
obviously it's not an individual thing. It's the whole entire machine.
Yes, talking about the system thing here, the systemic thing here. It's very strong feeling to me right now that literally seeing a murderer admitted to their crime.
I need to ask Luna a question real quick, but I have to put us on mute to ask it because I'm not sure if this is public information. 1 second. Okay. We can't go too deep into this, but just to let you know, second thought. Is it second thought or second opinion?
Second thought.
Second thought.
JT.
JT was second thought. Sorry. Did a video on the CIA and how fucked up it is and got questioned by the feds.
Yes.
Like they harassed and investigated.
They have like a file about him, few hundred pages long.
Because he talked about this shit we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
They don't want John Q. Public, you, thinking or talking about this stuff at all. And the funny thing is they don't even have to hide it very well because they know that the press is not going to publish about it.
Yes.
I mean, they'll throw some bones. There's this interview. which I think you told me that this couldn't get published, like they couldn't get this published.
Yes, that's the interview. There's a comment.
Let's read that real quick because I think that's topical.
This is very important to know about. Where's the comment?
I've been watching a lot of Dank Pods, you can see.
Where's the comment section?
Just at the bottom.
Okay, that's it. King
This
Rose
one right here?
Archive.
Okay, this is from the archives that posted this.
Yes.
I was asked who was the reporter. It was Cleet Roberts, who covered World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He also played a reporter of the TV show MASH. Oh, I remember that episode. I thought that guy was familiar. That's a famous episode, MASH. Okay. In fact, he ends that series with a really moving monologue. When I met him, he was working at LA PBS outlet KCET, and we hit it off. He agreed to do this for nothing. The director was Ian Masters, who was and still is a journalist. Catch his Background Briefing podcast, who produced documentaries and wrote screenplays. Our goal was to produce a documentary about war reporters. I tried to sell it for years to no avail. Our batch of interviews just sat in a box. I finally decided to pull them out and post them on YouTube. I'm glad to see people are watching. So, you know, and the thing about it is, we are in this weird, I'm not going to say we have.
Nobody bought this awesome interview with an ex-CIA agent.
Because nobody wants to talk about it. The big agencies don't want to talk about it. They'll put Ken Burns out where he puts all kinds of
Ken
misinformation.
Burns, fucking Ken Burns.
We're in this weird place right now, and we're kind of at a crossroads as well. We kind of have a little bit more freedom right now because of the internet.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we have total freedom because the platforms like YouTube heavily suppress people that talk about stuff like this. And like, that's also not conspiracy theory to talk about that. It's a business. It's a bad business decision. When you're trying to sell crap for Coca-Cola and Nike and capitalist corporations, it's not good business to be putting those ads next to assholes like me and Luna telling you why those corporations are completely twisted and evil, right? So like, that's not a conspiracy theory. That I was in marketing for decades. I wouldn't want one of my clients commercials.
I wouldn't want to put commercials on this video.
So yeah, so okay, but we do have these platforms. We do have some degree of voice that we
like JT. He does have his own channel.
Although he got squashed.
But once he touches that nest, that beehive, they flag him. They investigated him. Now, he's on the list.
Now, but here's the thing. I believe that this is a limited window of opportunity, and they're going to suppress more and more and more voices that talk about this kind of stuff and marginalize us. And I don't mean, like push us to the sides, like push us to the margins. And like, look at Elon Musk is now trying to buy Twitter. This kind of stuff, it's all going in one direction, which is complete corporate control. And corporate control really means state control. It's one entity, right? The corporate state, right? Bourgeois democracy.
Braga, you bullshit. Videos has millions of views. But this video has less than 10K. Yeah.
So go out and share this. The video we're watching right now, we put the link in the description. We put the link in the chat. Go out and share it. But also, and this is a longer term. So the short term thing is you have to go and do the work of boosting this stuff manually, and you're going to get suppressed when you post about it. Like when people retweet. Okay, just to give you an example. When Luna tweets something out, there's a good chance if it's very controversial, like for instance, your USAID thread will get squished. Okay.
Yes.
But then if somebody quote tweets Luna talking about USAID, they get even more squished. So like Luna typically could get like 1,000 likes and like 100 retweets easily, right? But if she touches something like USAID, CIA, something like that.
When I talk about the massacre committed by the
that got the weirdest shadow ban we've ever seen. Yeah. You can't even look at the quote tweets, right?
Yes. But the quote tweets disappear.
But then like when we could see the quote tweets in our notifications, right? And each of those quote tweets would only get like 2 or 3 likes. It was bizarre, right? So in the long term, what we have to do is take control of our own social media and algorithms. I'm eventually going to put out a video in the next couple of weeks about RSS, but that shouldn't stop you from going out and looking it up right now. You can install an RSS app right now. There are a lot of good ones out there. Just do a little quick Google, like best RSS or whatever. There are a bunch of them. I think I use Feedly. So, but like RSS is this amazing technology that's like well over a decade old. And Google had an RSS app, but as soon as they bought YouTube and started putting out Google Plus, which was a total failure, they squished RSS. They stopped talking about it. But you can put any YouTube channel, any podcast, any Twitter feed, you can put any basically website on your RSS feed, and boom, you have your own algorithm that you have complete control over. I like it for a lot of reasons that go beyond like censorship. Like for instance, I can have one RSS feed that's just for like when I'm studying Vietnamese, so I don't get distracted by other videos. And also, if I'm like just sitting back and relaxing, I don't have a bunch of Vietnamese tutorials and shit popping up in my feed. You know what I mean? So like RSS is really amazing technology that gives you control over your own algorithm. And we should really be normalizing technologies like that. RSS has been out for so long, and there's so many good, there's so much good support for it. And then, you know, there's other, I don't really use Mastodon anymore. I'm kind of like done with social media. I think we need to find better ways of communicating than like Twitter clones, but still Mastodon is preferable to Twitter in terms of at least you can have your own instance, things like PeerTube, these things we have to build up. I'm as guilty about it as anybody. One of the problems is that these platforms don't try to make you addicted.
Yeah.
So like it's a lot easier to fall back into using Twitter or Facebook. You have to force yourself to use the other ones until you get the hang of it. But anyway, that's I think the stuff is really important. It's all connected.
Yeah, exactly. And we need to be like really like always like be like what do you call it? Cautious.
Conscious and intentional.
Yes. Yes.
Consciousness and intentionality.
Always say that. It is CIA. It is CIA. Accept this is CIA disinformation program campaign. Okay, let's continue watching the video.
Sort of basis. It sort of covers the skein of relationships that you can have, you know, in any social situation.
This relationship demands participation on the part of the press, though, does it not?
Oh, of course.
Well, how does it participate?
It can participate in many ways. It can publish articles that the agency wants published.
Knowingly publish it because the CIA wants it done, or
oh,
unknowingly?
Yes. Well, both. Knowingly most of the time, I would guess. And sometimes the information is passed to a reporter as valid information, a good scoop, if you will.
Only sometimes it's valid information.
So the agency uses the press in numerous ways to achieve its, what I call, illusion-building properties.
Illusion-building properties.
When you were with the CIA in Vietnam, did you have any direct connection with the press?
No, I didn't. I do know of the case of the press in Saigon in the early 50s, where they were meeting directly with Colonel Lansdale. 5 members of the most prestigious newspapers in the United States were meeting with Colonel Lansdale, the agency's man in Saigon. And
how often would they meet?
Quite frequently. I don't know the exact frequency. But you will look at the press coverage for that era, and you'll find no mention of agency activities in the press. Yet the agency was totally responsible for the creation of the Diem regime.
Fucking hell, man.
It created the Diem regime. It built an illusion about the Diem regime, and it used the press to sell the illusion to the United States, the illusion that lives on today in the United States.
Can I say something really quick?
Yes.
I just realized I got my days mixed up because of time savings with Contingents, who's watching right now. I just saw that. I thought it was tomorrow. Oh my gosh.
What happened?
I think I was, oh
What's
my
going
gosh.
on?
Nothing. I agreed to have we were going to have a podcast recording, and I got the days mixed up. So I apologize, Contingents. If it's, you can tell me in the chat, Contingents. If it's not too late, I could hop on right now, actually. But if I understand if it is too late. Sorry. The time zones are so confusing.
The time zones.
I had it on my calendar wrong, so I apologize about that. But you could we could talk in the chat about it. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that, yeah, it's too late. Okay. Sorry. I'll email you and we'll fix it. We'll come up with something else. I apologize. All right. Sorry about that. That was a point-to-point communication. Back to you, Luna.
Well, did you hear what just happened in the video?
Recap. Catch us all up.
So the MC asked him, let's just rewatch it.
Okay. Sorry, I threw everything off. I screwed everything up. Self-crit for everyone.
All right. Let's watch it.
Connection with the press?
No, I didn't. I do know of the case of the press in Saigon in the early 50s, where they were meeting directly with Colonel Lansdale. 5 members of the most prestigious newspapers in the United States were meeting with Colonel Lansdale, the agency's man in Saigon. And
How often would they meet?
quite frequently, I don't know the exact frequency, but you will look at the press coverage for that era and you'll find no mention of agency activities in the press. Yet the agency was totally responsible for the creation of the Diem regime. It created the Diem regime, it built an illusion about the Diem regime, and it used the press to sell the illusion to the United States, the illusion that lives on today.
This is so important, actually, yeah. So if you don't know the Diem regime, Luna, do you want to do a little recap on who
All right.
knows Diem is?
This is so
Diem, right?
fucked up. Diem. His name is Diem.
Yeah.
Ngô Đình Diem. This
Just to
is
give you an idea that
so
like
fucked
they
up.
send CIA agents over to Vietnam to work there for years in intervention, and they don't even know the difference between a D with a line through it and a D without a line through it. But anyway,
how little attention that they paid on the literal dictator, the fascist
That they
dictator
installed.
that they installed in Vietnam. So Ngô Đình Diem, he was born in a Mandarin family in the south of Vietnam. He used to work for the king, and he worked as like a prime minister to the king of Vietnam. Actually, pretty fucking high kind of background like that. He hated the French, and instead of fighting with Ho Chi Minh or communists or something to kick the French out, he sought the help from the USA to kick the French out. So
and the Catholic Church, by the way.
the Catholic Church, through the Catholic Church, actually,
Yeah.
because he was a Catholic. His whole family was Catholic. He went to the USA in 1950. He spent 2 years there, and he met with a lot of Catholic church, big like bishop too. And the bishop was the one who introduced him to the State Department of the USA. And at the time, the USA had several other candidates to be put as a puppet. And finally, they chose Diem, based on many other reasons. But long story short, so the United States, the CIA, literally created this fascist dictator and put him in chair. And they literally fake an election. Nobody voted. But after like a few months, they announced that like 99% of Vietnamese Southerner voted for Diem, and he's now the president of the south of Vietnam, blah, 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 like that. And it was totally undemocratically elected president, a Catholic, a fascist, who dragged the guillotine, the literal guillotine left by the colonialist French. He dragged that guillotine over the south of Vietnam and executed anyone that he suspected to be communists. No trial. He killed from 2,000 up to 26,000 people. Literally fascist.
Now, here's what's really important. He was intensely unpopular in Vietnam. Nobody voted for him. Nobody liked him.
Yes.
He did not win the election. It was a sham election.
Fabricated.
Nobody denies this, by the way.
Yes.
Even in US, like the US version of the story, that's true. Now, the CIA was there. They couldn't do anything to make him popular in Vietnam. The CIA was there to make him popular in the USA and to make him look like a freedom fighting, awesome, whatever in the USA. And to this day, there is this legend and myth and the weird thing too is that the three-striped Vietnamese, the Vietnamese fascists, they hold up Diem as like this hero that they worship, but they also worship the guy who took his place, who assassinated him.
They incoherent.
Completely
to put it mildly.
But that's because they fed so much disinformation that they can do shit like that, and they can hold these bizarre narratives.
The Diem regime was so fascist, so fucked up that they kept like cooing him, and they kept cooing each other, and literally he was assassinated by his own people, and the CIA like literally let it happen because they couldn't control Diem anymore. So. Yep, and literally this RAF admitted to it. And even to this day, 2020, Vietnamese, the diaspora in the USA still calls him our beloved president. The president that brought democracy and freedom to South Vietnam. And literally the Viet Cong, Ho Chi Minh like oppressed and invaded the South.
This is the CIA, a former CIA agent who helped install him, admitting that they helped install him and helped build his reputation in the USA. So it's pretty egregious. By the way, People are saying I pushed you out of the screen. I didn't push you out of the screen. You
I did not.
leaned. Don't lean.
I lean. I don't lean. I can't lean. All right. Okay. Fine.
When you lean, they yell at me.
Everything I did, that's your fault.
I'll accept it.
In the United
That's fair.
States.
Do you think that those 5 members of whom you speak had any idea that they were being used?
You have to, the atmosphere of those days where the press and the government were so in tune on the issues that I believe it was a very much a cooperative effort more than a using effort. The press viewed the situation as the government did, and both cooperated in putting across the stories.
The CIA were good folks with which one could be associated? Was that what you're saying at that time?
At that time, yes. Of course, the agency developed what they called Wisner's Wurlitzer. That was what they call an organ that he could play any tune he wanted anywhere in the world at any time. Supposedly they owned one newspaper in any country of the world.
Wow.
And whatever articles they want run, whatever themes that they wanted to propagate, all they had to do was just press the right buttons, and those articles and themes would come up in those countries.
Yeah, a Wurlitzer is like a piano they used to use for like theatrical things. So
Wow.
they literally, this is like, I've heard of this before. They literally are saying that like the CIA director can play the world's press like a piano.
The symphony of propaganda. The whole world.
Exactly. And it's like imagine that. And it's if anything, it's way more sophisticated now, because not only do they have newspapers all over the
From
world.
the 50s, they already had that. Now it's 2020. How powerful.
They have armies.
Yeah.
And literally they use the army to do this too, of sock puppet accounts, fake people on social media, and all kinds of, who knows what their influence connection is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on social media. We know that they have thousands and thousands of sock puppet accounts from the SOS Cuba thing. And again, they don't even have to try very hard to hide it. Like when Luna would make any kind of comment about Cuba during the SOS Cuba thing, she'd get brigaded by armies of like John 463, Steve 34722, Bill
Or the
1433.
comrades' first name bunch number.
And they will not have posted about Cuba ever for years, and then suddenly
now like
there's obvious sock
hashtag.
puppets, right?
Yep.
It's so easy to make sock puppets, and
Army
the
of sock puppet accounts.
intelligence agencies have thousands and thousands and thousands of them. So
I think we'd like to know who Wisner was.
Wisner was a former deputy chief of the operations branch of the CIA.
I see. Mm-hmm. And he created the Wurlitzer.
He created the Wurlitzer.
Mm-hmm.
And we find now, this came under the corporate action staff of the agency, and from recent information, William Casey is concentrating all his efforts in rebuilding the agency in developing the corporate action staff. That's the staff that develops in international organizations, international press organizations, international organizations of all types.
See, international organization of all types. Keep in mind this. She's talking about NGOs here. All right, NGO like USAID, Project Hope, and many other like, and all kind of Voice of America, Voice of Europe, Voice of Freedom, Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe.
and those are just the ones we know that they
that we know
directly
of.
control. And then we have Reuters, which we know that they have indirect control over, and then who knows what else.
And
beyond
BBC
that.
too.
Who knows what reporters they have out there? You know what I mean?
Penetrates press, religious, academic,
Religious academic
institutions, here home and abroad. This is where he's concentrating the rebuilding effort.
Why does the CIA do this? What is the objective of the CIA when they put out disinformation, when they, you might say, co-opt the press?
One function of the agency is noted by the Church Committee, is to create an international anti-communist ideology.
Can I ask you, the church community, what are they?
Wait, let me hear what he said again.
Church Committee
Oh, I'm guessing there's somebody named Church. And it's a committee that
The
he had.
Church Committee.
Let me look it up.
Yeah, look.
I hadn't heard that before.
I'm curious.
But you talk about anti-communist ideologies.
Yeah.
We even have very powerful. This we've talked about this a lot. Operation Mockingbird and all this stuff. Church Committee. Investigations about abuse of intelligence from, not to be confused with the 2005 Church Report. So it was an investigation into the CIA by the U.S. Senate Select Committee.
Okay.
I'll have to learn more about that later. But we know that from like Operation Mockingbird, the CIA has embedded themselves in schools. They've embedded themselves in, like, I'm talking about universities, in arts institutions, art magazines, all kinds of leftist journals back in the past. And where do you think all this anti-communism from the left comes from? Luna, you're leaning. People are going to get mad at me again. Parenti talks about this in Black Shirts and Reds all the time. Left anti-communism. And we're dealing with this so much right now. And it's a real problem. The left anti-communism, and I'm not even saying the CIA has to directly push this left anti-communist ideology. There's been so many decades of building this anti-communist ideology and disseminating it through these institutions and programs that they control, that a lot of people voluntarily become dupes for the CIA without even realizing that they're doing work for the CIA.
Exactly.
And you have to be really, and even Luna and I can sometimes accidentally share misinformation. We've caught ourselves doing it in the past. We always try to correct ourselves as soon as it happens, but it's like they have so much footprint. It's really hard to, finding truth in our world is very difficult.
Yes.
And maybe we can talk about that after the video a little bit more. I think that'd be something interesting to talk about. But yeah, keep going.
To create an international anti-communist ideology. Well, it's my thesis, the reason you want to create this international anti-communist ideology is so that when you go down to Nicaragua and you want to overthrow the government of Nicaragua, well, you can't justify to the American people going down there and overthrowing that government unless you can link it to a greater threat. It's just a little insignificant nation. But if you can link it to a greater threat, then you're justified in overthrowing it. And that's exactly what's happening in Nicaragua. It's not the Nicaraguans fighting to sustain the way of life that they want. It's the Cubans or the Soviets and Cubans who are supporting this regime. And we are therefore, by working against the Nicaraguan government, we are actually thwarting the plans of the Soviet Union. That justifies our actions in that country.
So see, you heard that?
Yeah.
It's do I have to explain this more how disgusting this is? The USA wanted to overthrow the government of Nicaragua because they don't like the government, because the government refused to be slave of the USA. They want to overthrow that. So how to justify that?
Because if they said that this is an uprising of poor people who are trying to overthrow corporate and imperialist oppressors, which is what a communist revolution is, they're really afraid that the working class is going to sympathize with that. So what they have to say is,
it's a evil communist
it's a plot
Cuban
from the Cubans and the Soviets going in and intervening.
Yes.
By the way, something that Parenti talked about, which I think is really here in Inventing Reality, is the fact that when the media reports on stuff like this, they will put in some articles and some perspectives that are sympathetic to these causes. Yes. They will. So, like, for instance, even Walter Cronkite said in 1968 that we should pull out of Vietnam and stop the Vietnam War. Right? Now, they kept fighting for 7 or 8 more years. And what Parenti argues, and I think this is a brilliant argument, is that the reason they inject this little pill of, leftist sympathy, a little bit, a taste, it's so that then the far right can come in and say, look, see, the media is completely biased towards the left. They're all secret communists. And this was a big thing that started in the 80s with televangelists. The televangelist, Luna, is like a preacher, Christian preacher, who goes on the TV and has they make a shitload of money, and by fleecing people. But they were going in and saying that the news in the West and in the USA are secretly communists, and that filtered through. I heard Rush Limbaugh talking about in the 90s on conservative talk radio. That's still a thing with like Alex Jones, that like Obama was a secret communist, blah 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 blah. No, and so then what Parenti identifies, and it's so brilliant, I never really thought about it in this exact terms, is that to an average typical US American citizen who's fully indoctrinated and just living their life and they consider themselves apolitical, they see communists and far leftists like us saying the press is heavily biased towards capitalism and towards the right, blah, blah, blah. And they also see people like Rush Limbaugh and Pat Buchanan and and Alex Jones, all these far right people saying the media is so biased towards the left. They're all secret communists, blah, blah, blah. So their perception is like, okay, the far right is complaining about it. The far left is complaining about it. So that must mean that really they're actually pretty balanced and neutral. And it creates this perception of neutrality. And it's really a brilliant way of manipulating and controlling the situation.
Exactly. So Ralph was talking about how the USA manipulated information and narrative to justify the interventionism in other countries, especially country in the global south. And he was talking about, the concept, we'll say, in the 60s and in the 70s. Now we are in 2022 already. And the one more thing that the USA been doing is using color revolution to justify the interventionism. Again, I had videos talking about this. The reason why they started color revolution in the outside of in the imperial core is not because they care about us. Okay, not because they cared of the oppressed quote unquote people in Vietnam and like LGBTQ plus community. They want to take that, manipulate that to justify their future interventionism. So, for example, if let's say hundreds of Vietnamese people kind of protested against some incidents against the government of Vietnam, the USA immediately jump in, made it become a big deal. Report that, Vietnamese people are so oppressed that even they are now rioting against their own people. We, the USA, police of the world, we need to support them and send help and send weapons to them so they can free those people. This is literally the purpose. So why the thing like the SOS Cuba happened in the last 2 years? Why is it that the USA doesn't give a fuck about Cuban people? If they do, if USA does, they will stop the sanction already. The sanction is still on over 60 years. But they still run the SOS Cuba campaign so that the American people, especially in Miami, they would hate communism even more, and I want the USA to sanction even more.
By the way, you notice when the CIA does an intervention, right? I've seen this happen again and again and again. Now go look through Twitter and go look at and I don't blame these people for doing it, but these are kind of probably, I'm not gonna say naive, but uninitiated, right? They don't know how all this shit works, and they hear about something like SOS Cuba, and they're like, I want to go support freedom, right? And they go out there and they're like, you can find all these tweets out there. They're out there, easy to find. And they're like, I'm at this rally for free Cuba, and I'm seeing all these fascist flags, and there's all these Nazis
Confederate
here.
Flag.
Yeah, and it's
Team Blue Line flag.
You see it in all of these color revolutionary kind of support rallies. I don't know. That's just something that's worth noting. We got some chats, Luna. Do you want to go through them real quick?
Yeah.
I've been collecting them. A non-user says, there is no left anti-communism. Anti-communists are right-wing. I know that.
Yes.
And Luna knows that.
Yes.
And you know that.
Yes.
But I don't think that the leftist anti-communists know that, and that's why they call themselves leftists.
Yes.
And, Parenti has a whole, section of Black Shirts and Red that talks about this. But it's particularly insidious because I don't care. I love going toe-to-toe against Nazi ideology and conservatives and liberalism, not to say that I want to debate them or treat them as our equals or they have anything valid to consider in their arguments, but as far as that battle, that's easy, relatively speaking. But when the people call themselves leftists or communists or anarchists, but they're actually pushing this really reactionary, anti-communist, pro-status quo, defeatist, doomer, all these kinds of things, they're the Trojan horse in our movement.
Exactly.
It's very,
For example,
very scary.
this is this is this kind of people that I deal with nearly every day on the internet. They call themselves Marxist-Leninists and then say like, yeah, I hate America, but Vietnam is a revisionist country and it deserves to be destroyed. You deserve to die because you support that. Like,
and by the way, Luna's not exaggerating. I have seen these YouTube comments and tweets that she's received. You know, they're not...
Dude, like, you're Marxist-Leninist. You're calling yourself leftist, but you have the exact same talking point with fascists.
And there are a ton of people that call themselves anarchists, but they just want to shit on any kind of revolutionary activity that ever happens, especially in the global south or people who aren't white, decolonization. Like, there's all kinds of faux left anti-communism out there. It is a nightmare. Alex Song Dragon 18N said, wasn't the war on drugs meant to target the anti-war protesters? Not only that, but I think even more so black people. We have specifically people from the Reagan administration who have come out and said, and again, this isn't conspiracy theory shit. These are people who are in the administration who have said the war on drugs was a way to target radical black people. We can't, and I think one of the...
That Black Panther was very powerful.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there was a quote that was something along the lines of, we couldn't arrest people just for being black, so we had to come up with a reason to arrest them. There's also the anti-Mexican, which if you want to learn more about this, Overthrow Media just put a video out about this. Everyone check out Overthrow Media. I'll put a link in the chat in a second. The most recent video, very, very good video. If you think you know everything about weed and everything, I recommend you give it a watch. You might find stuff in there you didn't know. But there's a lot of anti-Mexican shit with it too, because, and this goes back to like the 19-teens and 20s, because that's where the whole term marijuana came from, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, but yeah, there's racial component, anti-protest component, for sure. SCH Dow says Paul Kochut's also a great Marxist. You could read How the World Works, and he has a YT channel too. I've read some of when I'm struggling through like Capital. Paul Kochut also has some really good read-alongs of Capital that I've used in the past. So yeah, definitely recommend that. And then of course Overthrow Media, BP, Big Villainous, says they act like everyone that isn't a right winger is far left. Yeah, specifically those folks that are like Alex Jones and Rush Limbaugh and stuff. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean.
It was the Nixon administration who admitted that.
My parents think, I don't know, I think I might have finally convinced my dad that he's not. But forever, my dad thought that Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were secret communists.
Oh no.
And I was like, I had to tell my dad, like, Dad, I'm a communist. Trust me. These people are our enemies. Joe Biden is our enemy. He's not a secret communist. He's the farthest thing from being a secret communist.
Oh gosh. All right. Can we continue?
Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Oh, welcome.
Nixon's aide said that, PJ Weiner. Yeah, yes. I wasn't making that up. See?
Do you think the State Department was part and parcel of the CIA plan, or was the State Department taken in by the CIA?
Oh.
I think at the very highest levels of government, the National Security Council that directs the agency, probably a very small clique of people knew about it. But certainly at the working levels of the State Department, even Daniel Ellsberg, who I've talked to recently, said he had no idea. And he worked on the white paper. He had no idea that this was based on an agency corporate operation. Now,
see, the CIA, as I told you earlier before we watched, like lots of people, they know CIA is bad, but they don't know how deep and how powerful it is and how much indoctrination that they've been fed their whole life. This guy said it, like even like so many staff of the State Department, they didn't even know that they were actually working with and for the CIA to spread this information. That's like, yeah, that's how insidious they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is just one example of thousands that could be brought up. The agency routinely forges.
Tell me another one, Andrew. What?
Some I can't talk about. Yeah. I'm afraid I just can't. I mean, under security restrictions, not to. But look at the white paper in El Salvador. It was based on the discovery of communist documents in El Salvador, and supposedly a leader of a small communist movement had gone around to Vietnam, had gone to West Germany, the PLO, all our presumed enemies in the world, and had all promised to support him. This document was discovered all at once, just as Reagan was taking office, and this would form the basis of a white paper on El Salvador. And many critics have pointed out the obvious fallacies within the white paper and the obvious forgery that it was. That's another one, and there are examples of doctored photographs that I can't talk about, and the planting of articles is a routine. It's a daily.
What do you think he was talking about? Doctored photos that he can't talk about. Doctored photos. Those were the deep fakes of the 60s and 70s. Who knows? Who knows what doctored photos? Do you know what I mean? Could be anything.
Could be anything.
And you don't think the CIA had the capacity to doctor a photo pretty good? I mean, this is like, that's the other thing. What we're hearing from Ralph McGay here is it's only possibly the tip of the iceberg, because most of this shit, I'm sure that he would love to have talked about, he can't, because if he did, he'd immediately be like thrown behind bars or worse, because he had, he still had to keep security clearance and everything up, like by law. So
is our audio? Oh, it's fine now. It's fine now. Okay, good. Okay, finish your point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep watching.
Daily thing that goes on, you have a theme that is developed, the anti-communist ideology. So you constantly are planting articles in newspapers in one country, and you pick it up and replay it in another country, and you use the techniques of white, gray, and black propaganda.
What's that mean?
White propaganda is more or less a U.S. government statement. Everybody recognizes it as such. Gray propaganda.
Okay, so white is like the obvious
important.
propaganda
Yeah.
from the government themselves.
Everybody learned this stuff because
White, gray, and black propaganda.
white is directly from the government, and they don't try to hide it.
Yes.
Like when the White House makes a statement.
Yes.
Is a statement, the sourcing is not quite clear, it's fuzzed up. Black propaganda would be...
So, again, gray
Sources
propaganda.
say,
yeah,
whenever it says, like, we heard from a source in the U.S. State
yeah,
Department.
or according to some person that not to
an
be
unnamed
named,
source, yeah.
unnamed source. That is gray propaganda.
Yeah.
Now it's black propaganda.
If the agency would put out something, say, from the Communist Party of China and make it appear authentic. One good example of this, during the Cultural Revolution in China, the agency, through its radio transmitters on Taiwan, would come in at the tail end of radio broadcasts, mainland radio broadcasts, and they would pretend that they were just continuations of the program, and they would say, well, the situation is terrible in China. There's a uproar, the upheaval of the Cultural Revolution. Well, there's sort of a playback on this in that the agency, Foreign Broadcast Information Service, was picking up those broadcasts, and they thought this information to be authentic, and they were disseminating it to the intelligence community, and the intelligence community was saying, estimating the situation based on agency disinformation.
This kind of shit has gotten so much more sophisticated with the rise of the internet.
Yes.
And now that, and I think I would also probably say that a lot of the stuff were like, so for instance, you see a lot of news articles coming out of Vietnam. Remember during the COVID, during the lockdowns in Saigon?
Yes.
And they were acting like all hell was breaking loose and everyone was going to die and it was the worst situation. And we talked to our friends in Saigon and they're like, it's fine, it's fine.
Our friends in Saigon is like, what's wrong?
And I'm talking, look,
Nothing's
Luna's got
wrong
friends
here.
in Saigon that are, very much like working class people. It's not like, don't get it twisted. And like, old people and stuff like that, and people who have families in Saigon. So like, they're really like, and we were in Da Nang through the whole lockdown. They're acting like it was like this horrible thing. It was like fine. We both did vlogs about it.
It's so funny that we literally live here. It was fine, but like a bunch of white people in the outside of the earth like cry for us and pray for us.
Yeah, like trying to save our lives.
What are you doing?
It's like we were getting free food. Everything was fine. But then also like the shit about the cyber army in Vietnam. One of Luna's first political videos. If you haven't seen it already, go look at the cyber army video on Luna's channel. That is shit where they acted like they were getting that information from the government, but they just made a bunch of shit up completely from whole cloth.
You remember the Reuters article about like foreign policy talking about is the COVID success in Vietnam built on repression. They literally interviewed like 2 or 3 people, manipulated their words, and the 1 or 2 interview persons like they have revealed actually like we don't even know that they're real or not.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and I'm telling you, go look the stuff up. they make shit up and they attribute it to. I mean, what's that guy's name? The reporter who, the quote unquote reporter, the white guy.
Bill Hayden?
No, the other guy.
Joe Buckley?
Buckley. Joe Buckley.
Yeah.
Joe Buckley just makes shit up and gets it printed
in books.
No, even Bill Hayden does the same thing too.
Yes, Bill Hayden wrote books about Vietnam and China.
There's the other guy too. The other guy. Wait, Joe Buckley's the guy who wrote the book on labor and says that there's no such thing as a co-op, right?
Yeah.
And then Bill Hayden is the guy who wants to see your calloused hands, the creepo. And then there's a third guy.
Mike Tatarsky.
Mike Tatarsky. That's who I was thinking of. Mike Tatarsky's the one that was writing articles about how bad the situation was in Saigon and only interviewed one like NGO officer who was a white guy who had no idea what was going on, who said that everyone was going to get evicted from people own homes. And like all the Vietnamese people we know who saw that article were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody is in danger of getting evicted right now. Like it's just, but he was writing it. He quoted this white German guy who like runs an NGO and who doesn't know shit. I mean, it was just like,
those three guys are so dear to us, quote unquote, that we just call him, hey Joe, hey Mike, hey Bill, how are you today? They like.
But you quote a white guy and put it in your newspaper article, and all the people in the U.S. Again, the target is not Vietnamese people because all the Vietnamese people can see immediately this bullshit. The target is not Vietnamese people. The target is you sitting at home in the West. They want you to think that Vietnam is a rotting hellhole that's always on the verge of collapse, when really it's very much the opposite situation.
Ooh.
And it's more and more important over time. You're going to see it more and more because as the West declines and enters this phase of like disintegration and disruption and chaos, they don't want you looking at places like Vietnam that are objectively doing a better job.
Oh.
I know for a fact that, like, look, it's not perfect here. It's not perfect here. There's so many problems in Vietnam. Luna and I talk about those problems all the time. There are thousands of problems here, right? But objectively, Vietnam, and not just the government, I'm not talking about the state, the people of Vietnam, just the Vietnamese people collectively are doing a way better job handling the conditions of the era that we are living in, the time period that is unfolding, than the USA or any other Western imperialist capitalist country, as far as conditions for the working class are concerned. And the more the West degrades, the more they're going to have to conceal that fact and come up with disinformation. The more they want to cope. It is the grandest cope in the history of human society. It is cope on a scale unimaginable. It's a cope that has billions of dollars being poured into it and countless millions of hours of human labor to help cope with the fact that they cannot keep up with places like Vietnam, and they don't want you to know that because they don't want you to know that there are other ways of doing things and other paths that you can follow.
Yes. Omega copium.
And by the way, the leftist anti-communists are such a big part of that.
Yes.
We have a whole thing. Like, that's why you have folks like the debate bros out there talking shit about Vietnam when they've never stepped foot in this country. They don't know what they're talking about. They watch shit live on stream that they have no prior information about, and they act like they know what they're talking about, and it's all to feed this anti-communist line. And I'm not saying that they're working directly for the CIA. Like I said, they don't have to be, because the CIA has done such a good job building soft power over the decades that, again, you can become an unbewitting dupe of the CIA without even realizing it. It's not that hard because you're raised into it. I was raised into it. I believed all this bullshit. I mean, it took me years of living in Vietnam to realize that the shit I was hearing about Vietnam wasn't true while I was living here. The greatest copes in the history of cope.
Yeah, talking about the anti-communist left. Literally, like, debate bros, just look at those. How many of those calling themselves, like, anarchists, leftists, socialists, Marxists, Leninists, and just turn out to be, like, supporting the CIA talking point or the Duginists, We're not making, we are not making shit up. This is literally true. Now let's keep watching this.
And Vietnam is still a poor country. That's true.
It is a developing country.
And people do die from lack of opportunity. You have to look at the historical and comprehensive perspective. If you look at the progress that Vietnam has made in the last 20 years, it's absolutely remarkable. And if you look at the way that they've handled the COVID situation and the global economic crisis, it's remarkable.
Dude, you know
gas prices have gotten worse, but it's not like
it's slowly gotten
crisis. And they're getting back to normal. Yeah. I mean, like everything they handle it better. I'm not saying they handle it perfectly. Be careful. Like, listen to what I'm actually saying. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying they're handling it way better than the USA.
And there's virtually no food shortage in Vietnam.
No, that's not virtually. There's no food shortage in Vietnam.
Yeah.
There hasn't been throughout this entire fucking thing. Sometimes we don't get exactly what we want when we're in like the worst lockdown.
Cheese?
Yeah, like sometimes we don't get like fancy cheese and we don't get like, imported shit.
Imported beef.
We do now. Like things are fine now. And I'm sorry, it just frustrates me so much. I get
let's keep watching.
Sorry.
It's okay, I
Let's
understand.
pin down something you said a moment ago. Does this covert action exist in the CIA today as greatly as it did in the past?
As I understand, the covert action staff is being rebuilt on a massive scale. That Director William Casey is concentrating all his efforts in rebuilding the staff. And we can assume that it's operating again in academia, in the press, in the religious groups, in international groups, in labor, youth, students. If it isn't now, it will soon will be.
In your opinion, is the press manipulated as much today as in the past?
I don't think this is possible.
I'm thinking this is like the 90s probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Just from their clothes and stuff. They've built it. This is all like... Okay.
In the 90s, he said like they are being rebuilt in a massive scale.
So get this, okay? All right. Get this. This is so the church council?
The church committee.
The church committee. I didn't realize, okay, there's connections there that I didn't realize. Okay. I know that in the late 70s, I thought it was all had to do with the Vietnam War, but from reading a little bit about the church committee, it goes a little deeper than that. They did put some pretty minor restrictions on the CIA going into the 80s. But from what I understand, the Reagan administration rolled all of those back. And so I'm guessing that we really need to find out the provenance of like when this video came out, but I'm guessing this is sometime in the like mid 90s or something.
Yeah.
They started rebuilding, at that point. And remember, this is not a Republican Democrat thing, folks. If you're kind of new to all this stuff, the Democrats are just as fucking horrible. Bill Clinton was really instrumental in rebuilding the CIA and expanding their reach
on a massive scale.
And expanding NATO. I mean, remember
yes, with the 90s was the year that they started expanding NATO.
Yeah, and that was like the Kosovo bombing was under Bill Clinton. So like all this kind of shit, it's not a Republican Democrat thing. Joe Biden right now is running the CIA just as brutally as Richard Nixon did.
Yeah.
He might be a little bit better at hiding it and talking pretty about it, but that's the only real difference.
So the NATO started with only 12 member countries, and they had a treaty agreement with the USSR that they would not expand. But right after the USSR collapsed from the 90s, and until now, they have like 30 members already. They like really like nearly 3 times bigger.
When did Ralph McGee die?
2020.
Oh, he just died. Okay.
May 2nd.
In the past.
I don't think this is possible to manipulate the press as much today as was in the past. The press is much more skeptical, as are the American people in general. It'd be more difficult to do it, yet I'm sure that in some areas, of course, it is being manipulated.
I think you've answered my question in part already, but the public, in your opinion, cannot be hoodwinked as easily as they were in the past. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I don't think they can be hoodwinked as easily. However, some of the illusions of the past continue, and one of those illusions is what the Vietnam War was all about.
Well, you think with the manipulation of the press, which you have explained and which you believe still goes on to a degree, you think another war such as Vietnam could be sold to the American people?
Not nearly so easily. I think it could be done, but it would take a more sustained effort, more across-the-board effort. I think there's a lot of skepticism out there, and it would be very difficult to sell, but it could be done.
Pause it. Oh, it's done.
That
Okay.
says it.
Oh, that's a great point to end on, because
Yes.
you know what? That's almost like this foreboding,
Yes.
evil. Because what actually happened is all that skepticism
Yes.
and all that doubt about the system. You know who really took that energy and that sentiment and weaponized it and turned it into power and built a real movement that put Donald Trump in the White House are the fucking fascists. The fascists took the energy and the disillusionment and the anger and the knowledge of betrayal, and they redirected it. They misdirected it.
Yes.
And that's how they got so powerful.
Yes.
That's how they built
Skepticism.
the alt-right.
Yeah.
That's how they built this huge political machine that exists now. And it's like, really, they're also doing the work of the CIA as well. It's really fascinating. I mean, but at the same time, the machinery of the CIA and the State Department, USAID, all these things.
Yeah, thank you, David, for pointing that out. Difficult to sell.
It is a product.
They treated you like a product.
No, it's 1,000%
You
business.
are a product.
This is all
Your business.
the business of keeping the ruling class, the capitalist class, in power. Billion%. We got a donation from RF.
Oh, thank you.
RF, thank you for the donation. It says, there's not Republican missiles or Democratic missiles. They are American missiles. Both parties support this garbage and feed into it. 1,000%, yeah.
The Vietnam War lasted from 1950s to 1975. Vietnamese, well, we do not give a shit about what year, what party won. Because during that 20 years, America keep bombing us and spray chemical weapons and killed and torture and rape our people. What? We really do not give a shit about who win the election that year or what kind of harm was reduced by what kind of party win. Because both of them, I'm sorry, both of them bombed the shit out of us. That is why, like, the hypocrisy and the delusion of the American people arguing about should we vote for what party, because they are like two sides of a coin. Right. About the foreign like policy, both party are fucking terrorists.
Yeah, that's the world we live in for sure. And this, we're still trying to figure out. I'm googling on the side here to try to figure out when this actual interview was. I think you might be right that it was before the Iraq War. I don't think it was in the 70s because the technology.
It was before the Iraq War, I think.
Yeah, so it must be like mid to late 80s or maybe very, very early 90s. Yeah. If anybody can figure out when that interview was, I'd really love to know, because I'm just curious. But I don't know.
Now, do you think that people in Afghanistan care about the election in USA during the 20 years of occupation and constant bombs? So
they would love for us to have a revolution and overthrow and cease the imperialism.
So this is like looking at this from my perspective first, because like this is me from the outside imperial core and looking at you like millions of people like bitching on each other about voting Trump or Biden, like, and then like accuse each other of being like traitors, something like I'm sorry, but both of you are ridiculous. Because you're just arguing about like who's the lesser of evil. Meanwhile, both
the problem is
bombing
that
us.
No, the key word there is arguing. And the problem is that in the USA especially, we have convinced ourselves that change comes through arguing and debating and talking and voting and things that are just manifestations of speech, really. Like a vote is really just a manifestation of speech in a way. And what we really need to be doing is figure out how we build power in our community and how we actually push our agenda forward through practice. And Fred Hampton said it best, and we quote Fred Hampton all the time, that, you know, it's not about just talking and listening. And the liberals love to talk about listening. You know, we have to listen to all these oppressed people, listen to poor people, listen to women, listen to black people, listen to blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. I mean, yeah, you do have to talk and listen, obviously, but that's not even like the first real step. The first step is getting into practice. And as Fred Hampton said, making mistakes. It's very important that we make mistakes. It's very important that we act and fuck up sometimes because that's how progress gets worked out. That's how we learn. That's
At least it's the proof that you did something.
Not just the proof that you did something, but it's the proof of whether your idea was a good idea or not.
Yes.
It's the proof of like, okay, you have this theory, you have this ideology, you have these ideas. You can talk all day until you're blue in the face about whether or not it's effective. But talking doesn't get shit done in the real world. These people, I mean, look, and I wanted to believe it was true at early on.
I hope that if we just talk, everything's gonna be done. I wish.
Luna and I, how much have we talked, you know? I mean, like, we play a support role and we don't try to be LARPy about what we're doing here. Yeah. The real people that are doing the real work are the people that we interview and try to raise funds for and try to signal boost. The real people out there are the organizers, the people who are putting the theory to practice. And that's why we try to talk to them and bring them into the shows that we do so much, because they're the ones who are doing the practice and they can tell us whether or not our theories are valid or not. Like, for instance, Big Villainous does a lot of work out there in the real world, you know, and we're going to try to get into doing more of those things in the months to come directly. I mean, we do a little bit of stuff here and there, but like at the end of the day, debating and talking and theorizing and even educating only gets you so far. You people have to go and look into your communities and figure out what really needs to happen there and then do shit and test these ideas against reality. That's the only way we'll find out who's right and who's wrong is through, Engels said, the proof is in the pudding. The proof, as they say, is in the eating, I think he said.
Yeah. You must eat the pudding to see that it's really like, if you just argue about is this pudding sandy or sweet, you waste all of your day arguing about that without actually eating the pudding to see that it's sweet or sandy.
Yeah.
So what's the point? That is the biggest problem with debate bros. They never go out there, do organizing or something or do something to help. They just argue, sit there comfortably in your armchair and talk about the weirdest hypotheticals ever to justify the ideas about it. What if space aliens force us to like do this? Like, oh, okay, it means that this atrocity is justifying. Like, excuse me, what are you talking about here? What? This is the thing that I really don't want you to fall into this trap, because there are millions of hypotheticals out there that you can use. But what kind of things actually related to your material conditions that you can use them to really like change the material condition to make your life better? This is it.
I mean, yeah. And I just want to say, like, obviously I think that propaganda, agitation, and education is important. That's why Luna and I do this full time, and we've dedicated, you know, our life's work right now to this stuff.
Yeah.
We don't think we wouldn't be doing this if we thought it was like completely worthless, right? I mean, like, we could do a lot better if we just want to entertain people.
Yeah.
Doing like a video game channel, who knows, like an
I
unboxing
can start
or
a
something.
TikTok channel where I just like change clothes all day about just in my outfit.
So there's value to it, right? We're not discounting it,
Yeah,
but it's really like the very beginning. And it needs to be, the ideas that we talk about need to be tested against reality. Like the stuff that we can talk about, you know, anyway, I'm going to take off here in a minute here because I feel like I've served my role. I've accomplished, I've did my tour of duty with the draft.
That's your country. That's a CIA. Why do you think about it?
I'm disgusted. I'm livid. I'm pissed.
Great America.
I'm pissed. I'm really pissed off. I mean, you should be too. Especially if you're from the USA, but no matter where you're from. If you're from the UK, they do the same shit. Australia does the same shit. Wait till you see Luna's video she's working on about the war crimes of Australia in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, I'm working on it.
So I guess my closing thoughts are we really need to pay attention to this stuff, know about it, tell other people about it, but then do something about it. And Luna and I cannot tell you what to do at all.
Yeah.
And anybody who thinks sitting in a chair in a studio hundreds of miles away from you, who knows nothing about your community, anybody who thinks they can tell you exactly what to do and give you some formula for what works and what doesn't or whatever in your environment, in your material conditions, they're feeding you a line.
Yeah, they are lying to you.
You have to figure out, you have to learn theory so that you can get out there and do practice only. That's the whole point of theory.
Nobody can tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
You must do it on yourself.
That's my
And
son.
if you're disabled, you know, and have a social anxiety and things that we are not like forcing you against your own will or your own ability. Just
from
like,
each according to their ability, to each according to their need. But
exactly.
like
Just
everyone do what you can. one more thing I want to say. We are not class reductionists here.
No, we're not.
And there's this, I recommend folks read The Progressive Plantation, Leaving the Progressive Plantation, because it talks about this idea of the mythical, and it's something that white leftists especially espouse, is this mythology of the working class. That the working class is like not severely fractured and disrupted and splintered through overt intentional work by the ruling class, right? There's a long way to go in the USA specifically before we unite the working class. It's obviously the goal, right? You can't have but this is something that Luna said in this interview you did with Comrade Clever Name last year.
Clever Name.
Comrade Clever Name. Luna was talking about how you can't have a socialist revolution unless the people are socialist.
Yes.
Luna has an article, by the way, which I'll share in the chat, about the importance of intersectionalism to communist revolution. Because if you want to ignore all the problems that other people have through capitalism, because of things like disability or gender or race or whatever, you're just further dividing. You're playing into the hands of the capitalist class. Luna wrote a great article about it. I'll share that in there. I'll let her words be my last words here.
Now there's about 15 minutes left, and I will use this to talk. This is real quick, about the class reductionist people. Like I do think that your argument starts from the goodwill. I understand that, and I'm trying to talk to you in good faith here. But the biggest problem with people like class reductionists is that they're looking at things from a very privileged perspective. I gotta say that. I'm sorry, but because you have the privilege, that is why you look at things from the class reductionist perspective. Because here's the thing, it is a true story in Vietnam. The reason why Ho Chi Minh could unite millions of Vietnamese people of all classes to support communism, to have a successful communist revolution in 1945, and then fought against the colonialism from the French and imperialism from the USA. Ho Chi Minh did that not because he was a class reductionist. Ho Chi Minh was never a class reductionist. The reason why Ho Chi Minh can unite millions of Vietnamese people of all classes like that, because he pushed very hard to support the identity of all Vietnamese people, of all kind of oppressions, of all classes of Vietnamese people. For example, at that time, 1920s, 30s, and 40s, Vietnam, we had lumpen proletariat, which was brought to miserable condition because of colonialism and feudalism. He talked to lumpen proletariat to point out that the reason why you're homeless on the streets, the reason why you have to become prostitute, the reason why you have to become a thief and a robbery is because your life condition, your life was stolen by feudalism and colonialism, and we understand you. And if you join, and that's like an economic identity. Yes,
that's a class.
Yeah, class. Yeah, something like that.
But I think Ho Chi Minh's really, when he was uniting the ethnic minorities.
Exactly. I'm going to talk about that.
Okay, I'm going to take off. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Bye.
The Luna Oi shirt, by the way, we're getting those back in stock. There's another one, the Chibi Luna. I have to pitch this stuff because Luna never will. We've done another print run. There are only 20 of each design, and within each size, there's only like 3 max. So we recommend you pre-order if you really want a Luna Oi shirt. You could go to, actually, the best thing to do is to email noncompetecoop@gmail with the word pre-order in the subject line, and then whatever you're thinking about pre-ordering, and you can go to lunaoi.com and look at the shop there. Yeah. I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, bye. Thank you. Continue about Ho Chi Minh, how he united the working class of Vietnam. Okay, lumpen proletariat. He pointed out the misery of their life and pointed out what causes.
By the way, I did get your email, Sunder Gaming. I just haven't emailed you back yet because I haven't had any news yet. But we will email you when we know exactly when the pre-orders will be available.
Okay. Bye. Bye. About the farmers, Vietnam under colonialism, we were still a feudalist society. So farmers was a big part of our society, and he also talked and pointed out all the oppressions of the farmers coming from feudalism, colonialism, and how they've been mistreated, how the food that they like put all of effort to make being stolen by landlords and by colonialist friends. How unfair is that? He will talk to the workers who work at the factories and plantation owned by the French people, the literal working class here. You know what? He also talked to petty bourgeois Vietnamese, who their life also got very unstable because of colonialism, and how easy for them to be kicked out of the petty bourgeois class and be pushed down into the working class, or even worse, the lumpenproletariat. And you know what? He even talked to the landlord, to the feudal landlords of Vietnam. Can you believe it? He talked to the feudal landlords of Vietnam to persuade them that you are all Vietnamese. And even that you're rich, but you're still under the control of the colonialist French. And you still have to, if they want this, they can just kill you every day. And we must unite. Because Vietnam, we need to be independent. You need to support our revolution for the poor people. He tried to raise, try to make landlords to understand the oppressions of other poorer people, and try to make them sympathize for that, to raise the love between all classes in Vietnamese people like that. So it turned out to be that a lots of feudal landlords, rich, they donated all of their wealth for the communists, and after the communism, after the revolution, they went back to be normal farmers. That's truly happened. My grandma's family used to be a feudal landlord, richest in town, and my grandpa was the one who he was a son of the feudal landlords, richest in town, and he volunteered in the 1950s. He volunteered to carry rice on bicycle and walk to Diem for the communists. Well, he brought the rice for communist soldiers to fight against colonialist French. And I said, the Vietnam is not, believe it or not, Vietnam is not 100% like just the same identity. We have 54 ethnic minorities in Vietnam, over Vietnam. And if you watch my latest video about Conrad Hoàng Thị Khin, she was a Nung ethnic Conrad, and she was the one who cooked food for Ho Chi Minh for years in the 1940s in her hometown when Ho Chi Minh was preparing for the revolution. And I ended my video with a quote from Ho Chi Minh when he talked to her and many other Nung ethnicity in Vietnam. He said like, if all the Thai, Nung, Mèo, Hmong, and Dao people in Vietnam, the name of ethnic minorities in Vietnam, we join together, we hold our hand, we will have independence and freedom, and we will be happy. Ho Chi Minh did not erase all of our identity. Instead, he focused very much on that. He spent all of his time and effort to try to respect all kinds of identities of the working class, economic identities, the race identity, all kind of stuff like that, ethnic minorities and the lumpenproletariat, workers, farmers, petty bourgeoisie, feudal landlords, men and women, boys and girls, old and young. He always focused very much on the identity of Vietnamese people, and he pointed out that we are different and we have a different oppression, but we also share this biggest oppression. It is we do not have self-determination, we do not have freedom and independence, and we Vietnamese, we need to care for each other, love each other, understand and sympathize with each other. And we must unite to fight against colonialism, French colonialism, so we can gain our independence and freedom, so we can be fed clothes, and we'll be happy. Now that is very important. The thing, Ho Chi Minh had Vietnam and many other communists too. We had a successful communist revolution. It was not because we were class reductionists. We did not tell the farmers to forget about all the oppression, just fight against this and that, or tell ethnic minority people forget about their identity, forget about the culture and language. Let's fight against it. If you really do that, excuse me. I'm a non-white communist living in the global south. I will not want to work with you. Why? Because why you claim to be our comrade, but why do you try to erase my identity, my voice, my ideas, and my oppressions? I will not trust you. That is the thing that is why I said people who tell other people to forget about their identity to serve, a better cause or something, I'm sorry, I can't, because the oppression is the thing that I deal with every single day. For example, sexism and racism. I deal with sexism and racism every single day on the internet. And just put your feet in my shoe. Me, a woman of color, a communist woman of color from the global south, facing sexism and racism from leftists every single day on the internet, and suddenly a white cis male communist tell me forget about that, forget all about the racism and sexism, just focus about class struggle now. The sexism and racism is my class struggle. What are you talking about? Capitalism, racism, sexism, they intertwine. Capitalism uses sexism and racism to mistreat me, to exploit me even more. Sexism, racism is my class struggle. How can you tell me to forget about it and focus on something else higher? This is my daily life. This is every single day that I have dealt with on the internet. How the fuck can I forget it? I'm sorry, I'm not going to work with you if you tell me this. And that is why I tell you, you're talking from a privileged position if you tell me that I should forget my identity to focus on something bigger, quote, unquote. Yes?
You need to give them, the class reductionists in the House, a dialectical materialism 101.
Yes.
Because there's a claim being made that it's not scientific socialism. Scientific socialism is an application of dialectical materialism, and explain how, there's a dialectical relationship between the primary contradiction of capitalism and secondary contradictions.
Yeah, I should have added that. So class reductionists, I believe that you are thinking of things in a very, metaphysical way. What does that mean? What does metaphysics mean? It means that you see things in this world that they are separate from each other. They do not have, they are static. Do not have any connection to each other. Meanwhile, I'm a dialectical materialist. Means that I believe that every single thing in this world has connection, strong connections with each other. That is why capitalism, racism, and sexism, two different categories. Class reductionists that used to believe that these are two different, separated categories, that they do not have a connection with each other. And because we focus so much on identity politics, that we just focus on sexism and racism, we forget about capitalism. Meanwhile, that's not metaphysics. That is not true at all. Capitalism, sexism, racism, they intertwine. They're so strong and powerful in each other. For example, I give you one obvious example about how capitalism, sexism, and racism intertwine each other so strong. Talking about if you want to become an English teacher in Vietnam, okay? You go to Vietnam, you apply to an English center, so school, something like that. If you're white, and if you are white and a native speaker, your salary is gonna be the best, the highest. If you look white, but you do not have you're not like native speaker, but you still look white, your salary is gonna be the second best. Okay? And for people like Vietnamese, like me, want to work in that English center, even though my English is really good and I could be a good teacher, but because I don't look white and I have accent, my salary is gonna be the worst. It doesn't matter if my knowledge is better or worse than the actual native speaker, or might have a more experience, because how I look and because of my accent, my salary is gonna be way lower than the white looking people. Okay, and the thing that like a lot of diaspora, like Viet diaspora, went back to Vietnam, and they also seek to be an English teacher. They was born speaking English. They a native speaker in a sense that they just born speaking English from day one. They're perfect. But because they don't look white, so they still get paid lower than the white looking people. Now that is how capitalism manipulates racism to pay us less based on our identity and how we talk. About sexism. Are you fucking kidding me? Women always get paid lower than men, and it's always harder for women to find job than men. Because why? Because we women, we have less strength according to those capitalists, and we are easy to be pregnant, and we will have to take off at least a few months to be pregnant. So they just usually refuse to us and take the male candidate. Tell me that capitalism, racism, and sexism do not have anything to do with each other. You're ridiculous. You're super frivolous if you think that. Capitalism, it does not invent racism or sexism, but it uses racism and sexism as a very useful tool to divide the working class, to exploit us even more, to pay people with less privilege, less salary, based on just identity. That is why I always say, when you fight against capitalism, you need to fight also against the other tools that it's been using, including racism and sexism. And racism and sexism is my class struggle. I want women to be paid equally as men. I want people to be paid based on their real ability, not based on how they look and not based on their accent. So you can't, I'm sorry, but if you're a class reductionist, you cannot separate capitalism and sexism and racism and other kind of identities. Just imagine kind of one job, but a white person apply for it, and then a Mexican and black people apply for it. And it's just like, dude, police, black people are 6 times higher to be arrested and convicted and sent to jail compared to white people. This is class struggle. So yes, we are over time. And thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you will understand my point of view right now. And if you still have any question or any argument against my stream, just put them in the chat, in the comment, in the comments of the video, of the live stream, and I will try to answer them all. Thank you so much for being here and listen to me, just a normal Vietnamese girl in Vietnam. Thank you so much. And let's see you next time. See you next week. Bye-bye.